Hello everybody, welcome back to the Zesty Esty channel. If you're new here, I'm Esther, but I also like to go by Zesty, and I love to sculpt, I love to craft, I love to cook, I love to bake. I just love to make things. If you're into any of that kind of stuff, then you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to be covering how to glaze your polymer clay with UV resin. Specifically, I'm going to show you how I glaze very small charms. If you're new to polymer clay and are considering glazing your pieces to make sure that they stay protected and that they are a little bit sturdier and more resilient, then UV resin is a great option for you. I'm really hoping that this is a very helpful video for anybody looking to glaze their polymer clay. Of course, you can use these tips and tricks for glazing anything really, but this video will specifically cover glazing very small pieces, which can sometimes be a little bit tricky. All right, let's get right into it.
Let's start with tools and materials. You're going to need a UV lamp to cure your resin. I have a UV nail lamp and this works great for this. You're going to need some brushes. I like these thinner ones and I specifically use these for UV resin only. Toothpicks aren't a requirement, but they can definitely come in handy. This is sticky tack and honestly is such a helpful tool to use when glazing. I like to use it to prop up my pieces, which makes it a lot easier to glaze with precision. I like to use these flat nose pliers when working with charms that I want to glaze with more precision. And when I'm not using those, I like to use these plastic clothespins and they act pretty much the same way. Now for the resin, there are a variety of different brands available online. This is the one that I've been currently using and so far I love it. It also came with the silicone cup to pour the resin in, which is really convenient to have. I always end up using rubbing alcohol when glazing. This is great for prepping your area and for cleaning your pieces and tools after glazing. I also really like working on parchment paper when glazing. It just acts like a protective surface and you can even use it inside your UV lamp. Let's talk safety. It's super important to wear gloves when working with UV resin, and you also want to wear a respirator mask to prevent inhaling any toxic fumes. Before you start glazing, you want to make sure that your surface is clean and free of any dust, and you also want to make sure that the eye pins are fully secure onto your charms. I'm going to show you how I secure them using super glue. When I bake the charms, I like to bake the eye pin right into them, but I don't trim it to size until after it's baked. I find it's just easier to handle when I do this. Because you're using such a small amount of glue, the trick here is making sure you are working quickly so that the glue doesn't dry out on you before sticking it back into the charm. And I don't think I mentioned this in the materials, but it's also really handy to have some paper towel on hand to clean your brushes. Here, I'm using the rubbing alcohol to prep and clean them, which ensures that you're getting rid of any leftover residue and/or dust, which unfortunately will show on your glaze, especially if you're glazing something white or light in color. Now that the brushes are prepped, I'll also open the window to get some airflow in here. I'm going to start with showing you how I use the sticky tack. I like to use a little mound of it and I shape it into a cone, and then I basically stick the charm's eye pin right into it to prop it up. When I'm glazing, I'm making sure to use a very small amount of resin to start so that I can get nice and even thin coats. If you glaze quickly and use a big glob of it, it can drip or bubble, or you can end up with a really uneven and messy looking piece. So just take your time when you're doing this, and it also really helps to work in a well-lit room so that you can see what's going on. After I put on the first coat, I will cure it in the nail lamp for 60 seconds. And when you do this, please, please, please do not leave your brush in front of the lamp, because the light will still reach it and harden your brush head if there's resin left on it, and then your brush is basically ruined. For the second coat, I'm going to flip it around and get into any of those crevices around the eye pin that I may have missed, and then I'll cure that again for another 60 seconds. I like to do one last coat with the charm laying down flat like so. And then I cure that one last time for about 2 minutes just to ensure it's nice and hard. I'm going to show you how to do this with pliers. Working with pliers or a clothesline pin can help you have a little bit more control when glazing. And as you can see here, I'm adding the resin directly onto the charm. I actually do this more over using the silicone cup. I find I use less resin this way and I can prevent it from collecting dust as well. The only downfall to the pliers is that you basically have to hold it up in the light to cure it, which can be really time consuming and also inconvenient. So I will generally switch back to the sticky tack for the second and third coats. Okay, so now I'm going to show you my favorite tool to use, which is the plastic clothespin. And this is going to work the same way as the pliers, but you don't actually have to actively clamp down on your charm while you're glazing it, which makes it way easier to work with. It's super important that you are using a clothesline with a flat edge like this one here. The traditional wooden ones won't work for this because they don't have that flat edge to grip onto the eye pin. And I'm following all of the same steps here in regards to the coats, making sure they are nice and thin. Another benefit of using the clothespin is that you can cure more than one piece or charm at once, which really helps speed things up when you have a lot of pieces to glaze. And you can also very easily flip the pieces inside the lamp. If the charm is manageable, I'll sometimes just hold it in my hand to get any little crevices that I missed around the eye pin. And that is pretty much it. Here is the finished result. As you can see, these look nice and glossy and almost look like glass charms, which I love. And here is the difference between a glazed charm with UV resin versus one that hasn't been glazed at all. I think it adds so much finesse and it really completes the piece for me. I really hope this video provided some valuable information and was helpful to you, especially if you're just starting out with polymer clay. If you enjoyed it, you can consider subscribing for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.